Some women don't chase, and yet, they're never forgotten. She enters quietly, almost unnoticed. But to the man who is fractured, to the man who hides his emptiness behind arrogance, she feels like a mirror he has been searching for his entire life. What binds them is not love. What binds them is a wound neither of them can see. New Moon Carl Jung warned that when the unconscious remains unexamined, it becomes destiny. And destiny has a way of pulling opposites together, not to heal, but to expose. Clapperboard the invisible bond. The empath is not merely kind. She is attuned, porous, carrying the whispers of every unspoken grief. To the narcissist, she is an intoxicating bomb, because her gaze does not condemn, it understands. In her presence, he feels whole for the first time. But Jung knew, what he loves in her is not her, it is the reflection of his lost innocence, the child he abandoned to survive. And what draws her? It is not his strength, though he wears it like armor. It is his fracture. The echo of her own buried wound. For the empath has carried an ancient hunger, the hope that if she can love deeply enough, she might finally be loved back in the way she has always deserved. Clapperboard first turning point, the trap. At first, it feels magnetic. She gives, he receives. She bends, he takes. But like shadow and flame, imbalance soon reveals itself. The empath begins to notice, her silence is no longer chosen, it is demanded. Her generosity is no longer a gift, it is expected. The more she sacrifices, the less she is seen. This is the moment Jung would call the clash of projections. The narcissist projects his broken self into her, consuming her light. The empath projects her longing for redemption into him, believing she can repair what was never hers to fix. Clapperboard the archetypal woman. Here, the archetype emerges, the wounded healer. She carries not only her own soul but also the burden of others. She thinks this burden is destiny, but Jung would whisper. No, it is programming. The ego disguises enslavement as purpose. The narcissist, in turn, becomes the devouring father, the false king. He demands loyalty without offering protection, devotion without reciprocity. His charm was never love, it was hunger in disguise. Clapperboard's second turning point, the awakening. There comes a night when she cannot breathe. She looks into the mirror and does not recognize her own reflection. This moment, this silent collapse, is sacred. For here the empath meets her shadow. The part of her that has always believed, my worth is in how much I endure. It is in this confrontation that individuation begins. Jung taught that wholeness is not found by clinging to light, but by facing the dark. She realizes the wound that binds her is not his cruelty, but her own forgotten self. Clapperboard the contrast, stoic silence. The Stoic said, no man can enslave the soul that has mastered itself. The empath begins to practice this silence. Not the silence of submission, but the silence of clarity. She no longer explains. She no longer justifies. She simply observes. To the narcissist, this silence is unbearable. He thrives only where reaction lives. Without her emotional fuel, his mask begins to crack. The devouring father collapses into a frightened child, raging against the loss of control. Clapperboard third turning point, the break. And yet, she does not rage back. She does not plead. She does not rescue. Instead, she withdraws the projection. She sees him not as destiny, not as savior, not as monster, but as a man carrying his own unhealed wound. This is power. For the archetypal feminine, once awakened, does not seek to change him. She seeks to change her allegiance. Her devotion shifts inward, where her soul has been waiting all along. Clapperboard the liberation. Now she understands Jung's truth, attraction born of wounds can only bind two prisoners. Love cannot grow in captivity. Compassion, yes. But love, never. And so she chooses the path of individuation, Each step away from him is not escape, but return. Each boundary she draws is not cruelty, but rebirth. The empath who once gave everything begins to guard her own light. And in this guarding, she becomes radiant, untouchable, whole. Clapperboard closing liberation line. The narcissist will remember her, not because she stayed, but because she left without hatred. The wound is no longer a chain. And as Jung foretold, the woman who walks away in silence isn't weak, she simply sees more.